CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. All right, welcome back to CMMS Radio. The gentleman you see on screen is Michael Johnson. He's a certified facilities manager, but he currently serves as the Director of Strategic Initiatives at Aetos. And what's cool about Aetos is I've been talking to them for a while, learning a lot about them. It's an interesting technology, and this isn't so much about the product, but there's some cool things they got going on over there as far as digital twins and how it really works, how you can interact. There's some virtual component to it that I really like. And one thing that I really love is they offer unlimited users, which nobody's doing anymore. So I'm always a huge fan of that. But Michael Johnson, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Yeah, Greg, thanks so much for having me. This is exciting. It's exciting for us. We've been, eavesdropping on your show for some time and thinking, hey, maybe one day we'll get to talk to Greg. So it's exciting to get to that day.
Yeah, well, and for me, I think we both know, a lot of us know, whether it's people that follow the podcast or not, there's so many solutions out there, and it's fun for me to learn about the different solutions, what they're doing, but what I'm always after is kind of that specificity behind why they exist. Because when people are looking for a system, they might say, hey, Greg, what should I be looking for? I say, well, you got a lot of them out there. You got to find the one that actually understands you. Yeah. You got to find the one that is focused on the things that meet your business needs. Yeah. And you can't look at 400 or 500 systems. In fact, looking at 5 is pretty damn overwhelming, and a lot of clients out there searching for solutions, they look at 20 or 30, and I'm like, wow. They want to get it right, but sometimes you just got to get in there and look for that kind of click. And I think that's something with you and the team, some of the conversations I've had. I'm looking for things like not just what you're passionate about, but what you guys understand. So I want to get a little bit into your background.
Yeah.
You and I were just talking a little bit before we hit record, and we're talking about vessels, ships.
Yeah.
And you spent some time working on ships. Now, not in the military, but we're talking, like, I think you mentioned like Mercy ships and things like that. Can you tell me a little bit of that story? And then I want to get into some of your facilities management and technological background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was the kid who, took the toy out of the box and then started looking at the box, started playing with the toy, and then trying to, figure out, how do I take this apart? How does it actually work? And I just have been obsessed with finding out what's inside something and how does it work. And so that has led me to a life where I've done a lot of work with my hands and a lot of work with my head, trying to figure out how does the thing that I'm holding in my hands work. And so I ended up working on a ship with an organization and ended up in the engine room. Now, the interesting thing about the ship was, at the time, oldest ocean-going passenger vessel still in service, 93 years old when I walked onto it. Made the change from steam to gas and oil. And that actually changes from SS steamship to MV motor vessel in the shipping world. Made the switch from DC to AC, and the thing was old. It had a Fiat heavy diesel engine in it, and yes, at one point in time, Fiat did make those. Ours was actually a prototype, and so we ruthlessly collected all the parts for it too. And so working in the engine room as a marine engine watchkeeper, I remember standing on the top of a piston head and, hand honing out cylinder liners and getting to know how to work with my hands. And so this accelerated my learning in an incredible way because it put it to the test in the real world. Not even just modular, take this out, pull a new one in, but learning how to restore things, learning how to fix things, learning why. And I think one of the biggest things that's so often underlooked, literally just how hard can I hit this? How much force or torque do I put on this, right? It's those pieces, it's the listening, the hearing, the understanding your world as an engineer that just drove me through a career in the trades and then eventually into facilities management.
Yeah, so you're like just straight up stoked top to bottom when you're in that environment, because One thing you're either known for or want to be known for is kind of a ruthless curiosity. And when you have that working with your hands, but figuring things out and then discovering new things, like you said, like how how much force can I put on this? Like if you're hand honing the cylinders.
Cylinder liners, yeah.
Yeah, the liners.
I
And
just love
um, are you familiar with the concept of? I'm just going to say the concept and see if you know what it is. It's called knocking bolts.
knocking bolts. Uh,
Yeah. So I could tell you what it is, but I don't really know it that well. So there's a pretty heavy hitter in the maintenance and reliability industry. I would say one of the heaviest. His name's Krister Idhammer, Hammar, and uh, he wrote a book called Knocking Bolts, based on working on a ship and how when you knock the bolts, you can actually hear and sense
oh,
what's
okay.
going on. And the reason I asked about that is the way you're describing it is it's unfolding like really naturally as far as how you're getting exposed to the engine room, how it all comes together. You're
Mhm.
going through these situations where you're changing over to a newer technology. So you get to see all that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there. Now, as you're working on the ship,
Yeah.
how does that lead us into all the different experiences you've had in both facilities management and building management? And I want to try to tie it into the technology as we move closer and closer to your Aetos journey. Tell us a little bit about that, because I know it goes back, what, 15 plus years on the FM stuff.
So interesting you say that. It's a pretty easy connection. You're standing in the middle of that engine room in the middle of the night, and if you literally are standing in the middle of it, you look over here, there's your HVAC systems for 400 people, right? You look over
Yeah.
this way, there's your water treatment facilities for 400 people. You look over this way, there's your steam system heating up your water, purifying your fuel. You know, it is the microcosm of a city in one place, right? It needs to support all of our everyday activities just in one small interconnected world. And so this connected my love of systems, and I thought, man, if I can see how much works here in a place like this, I wonder what I can learn when I scale this up to larger and larger systems, to large buildings, maybe even to a college campus, maybe even to a power plant, maybe even to a manufacturing plant. And so it gave me this robust love of systems and the interconnectivity between them and what makes them work well and what stops them in their tracks. And trying to understand it all in a system is really what started to drive the next iteration of my career, and which ultimately led me to facilities management. Just I like the people side of it too, because as you know, they're one and the same. It's you can't make that disconnection there between your CMMS and the people who are actually getting it done, right? The
Yeah.
person holding it in their hands at the end of the day, is the one who actually executes it. It can be the greatest system in the world, and if you're just going to look at it, nothing's going to get done, right? So it's serving those folks, serving the boots on the ground. That was the next spark that got me into the management side of it.
So as you're talking about this, so I spent some time. This isn't about me, but I spent some time in building maintenance, building management, worked with a lot of different people. And as you're describing it, and I'm kind of watching you, I'm thinking about all the kind of, I don't know, goodness that happens when you get to work with these people and you're really trying to put it all together and it starts to make sense to you.
Mhm.
And then that puts you in a position as that's happening to help other people, because even if they're involved in it, they might have gaps to like the organizational impacts of what they do. It's not just a job. I mean, you're a function within an overall, like you say, system.
Mhm.
And then as you're putting this together, this ultimately leads you into the Aetos journey, where the one thing I was also thinking about while you were describing it is um, within your platform, there's what I call it like a virtual element when it
Mhm.
comes to a digital twin for the environment in which that frontline worker or any worker is at. They can actually use that to move through a space and see the
Mhm.
pieces of equipment. And I'm less interested in the product, but I'm always interested in the impact. So how do you get involved with Aetos? through this journey in your career? And then what are some of the things that have just satisfied and fulfilled you these last couple of years?
So I got into it because I was managing multiple buildings, and you can't be everywhere at once, right? But I'm looking at all the new tools that are coming out, right? I'm looking at digital twin, I'm looking at BIM, I'm looking at all these things. So I'm like, man, if I could model my building in a way that I could interact with it, whether I'm there or not, I could make decisions on what I needed to do next for maintenance, for capital planning, and otherwise, just about anywhere. It didn't. I wouldn't need to drive over that building because I could just pull up the model of that building and have a look at it. And so when I started to look at, digital twin technology and things like that, though, it was so much of it was just focused towards planning, towards the what could be, right? And I was like, but what about right now? Because I want something that's going to help me make these decisions right now on how I should manage and operate my building, not something theoretical about changes that I might, make and how I could benefit from them, but what happens now. And so, friends with the founders, and as I heard them talk about what they're trying to do, I was like, okay, so this is more than just for planning. This is for actually using it in the day to day. I became interested. And so I actually was a customer at first, and building out my facility, adding my assets and doing all that. And I ran into a problem. And my problem was I was, getting pretty specific in my systems I was building out here, with my hierarchy and everything and my assets. And I ran out of color coding. And I was like, this is a visual system. This is great. Adding these color code tags, ran out of color. So I'm like, well, they told me to contact them if I need anything. So I just contacted them through the app. And here's the thing. At this point, I'm working in facilities management for maybe 7, 8 years. You contact a vendor and you kind of hope, right? And that's just it. You try your best to get good vendors and to establish good vendor relationships, but it's so important, right? And I didn't know what to expect. They reached out to me the next day, and the day later, I had all the color options I needed. And I was kind of like, wait a minute. They actually listened to me and did something, and I was hooked. And I said, if this is a company that is going to actually listen and then actually, not put it in some kind of queue, but say, hey, that's something reasonable that we can do right now, I want to be part of this. And we've done it to this day. We've done it this past year for some customers who will come to us and say, hey, we just realized this. This is important. I can go talk to a product manager and say, hey, you know what? We're hearing this from this customer. What's the level, of difficulty in doing this? If it's something that works, we're just going to do it. Because it goes back to that primary DNA that I experienced at first, and we've kept that as part of our culture.
Yeah, and I think it's important as you're describing that you being there, having first been a client, I
Yeah.
think that's a really incredible thing for not just Aetos, but other orgs and situations out there. I mean, we see it when we look back at our lives where that happens a lot, and it. I've got friends throughout the industry where that was the case as to where and why they work where they work. Right when a CMMS provider or EAM, anything like that, is trying to provide the right kind of service and really truly listen to their clients and do everything. It's a real challenge to do everything for everyone. However, there can be some intention behind going through those, I don't want to say motions, but going through those processes of understanding the client's need and then seeing if you can connect it to your overall business. Not now I'm talking about like Aetos saying, hey, this does have value. We do want to help this client, but it helps everybody as well. And I know that's an important thing when it comes to this idea. Should we, as a CMMS provider, now I'll just use that as a placeholder for us, right? As a CMMS provider, should we be focusing on prospects and what they need to build our platform? Or should we, although we're going to monitor that and understand it, should we be more focused on our clients, what they are doing now, what they're needing moving forward to kind of push that process more so than focusing on the prospects? We want net new logos and all that kind of stuff, but I want to ask you that kind of direct question. What's your kind of viewpoint on that?
Wow. Yeah. We so
It's a tough one.
I think the key thing there is that our team knows both. And what I mean by that is that we have a fantastic product team who has made sure that every one of our employees understands that juxtaposition there, and understands that the best thing that we can do is to be really good listeners and to be really curious, so that we can build that rich context of the landscape that we're playing in, to be able to make those decisions with as much information as we possibly can. And so that's it. It's listening to both, and then it's laying out that landscape, and then making decisions as a team. There's a couple levels of product decisions, of decision making, and I sit on a group that meets on Wednesdays called Voice of the People, where we contribute in from, hey, this is what we're hearing from the field, this is what we're seeing from the field. Then we have the executive level that speaks into that as well from a different angle from the business. And it's there's not one size fits all. There's no exact right way to do this. The key thing is that we are listening as hard as we can through as many avenues as we can to our clients and to the industry, to be able to gain a big wealth of knowledge to be making those decisions, and trying not to end up in some kind of vacuum chamber where we're just listening to our own praise or what we've done before.
Yeah, that's important too. You make a really good point there where we can have our successes and find the things that work. And yes, we want to double and triple down on those things. But when you start to lose sight of that connection to your clients and the industry as a whole, it really is, yeah, we're running and growing a business and we got all that good stuff. And there might be investors, there might not. We all get it. But when you lose sight of the client and potential client and the industry as a whole, you start stripping out some of what made you what you were in the first place. And I think that's one of the hardest things to, I think, preserve when you're growing a company. So I want to ask you about this idea of a white glove service, because you obviously like to be heavily involved with clients, and it's a real challenge. It's very, very difficult to scale a type of white glove service. However, it doesn't mean it's not possible. It depends where the pressures are coming from as you grow. It depends what clients are willing to pay and how you've structured the organization. Would you say that's kind of a thing that you guys are chasing, this idea of, because I've had past discussions, right, with some of the team members about that being more possible than we might believe. What can you say about that?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good question. And I mean, to be frank and honest, it's a scary question, because we love when we can give it, and we are, looking at significant growth. And so it's, how do you keep that secret sauce? How do you institutionalize, if you can, that secret sauce? And so I think the key thing has been, it's been come down to how we hire. We are extremely careful in how we hire. I mean, Connor, our CEO, says it quite often. We're looking at the best of the best. We're looking at the people that can do it because it's what they do. You see our team interact. Our team is serving each other as just a baseline. It doesn't matter who you are. And so as we're building this team where that is just normal, and we're a high functioning, high performing team, then we're able to provide more of that white glove service because it ends up being in our DNA. And so it's the cross section of really high performing people with that kind of servant attitude, and the
Uh-huh.
curiosity to be able to understand what delights that client and what is so crucially important to them. And here's the interesting thing. You mentioned maybe it is possible because maybe it's not that hard. Well, here's the thing. Um, each of us, there's something that we like hate to do. It's like it's just the one thing, and it's like maybe it takes you 5 minutes, but you will avoid it like the plague. Like you hate doing this, you hate doing that. Like it's just, what is it, right? Well, when we get to know our clients well enough to be like, you know what, I've realized that doing this is really hard for this person, right? Well, it's like, well, how can we do that for them, right? And
Mhm.
so it's not that we're relieving some massive burden of work, but what we're doing is we're understanding our client to give them something that is going to put a spring in their step to allow them to get back to work. And it's more so that, where it's just like we get to know our clients really well. We do have, teams that understand the clients on a personal level as well. And our desire is that that continues to be a hallmark because of the people that we're hiring.
I I like the way you've explained it because the right people that are in it to win it can be intentional about what they do. They can be better and better listeners. And when you have teams that are built that way and they stay, and what I
Yeah.
mean by this is like more long term, not a ton of turnover, they can operate that way because they can not just settle in, but they can find the ways they make those bigger contributions to their teammates
Yeah.
and their clients. So I'm always thinking of this general idea that when a client hires a company for anything, their CMMS or whatever it is, that vendor should necessarily be an extension of their team.
Yeah.
And that's how they're there to augment, to provide, to deliver, and to service. And when I talk about how hard it is to scale white glove service, what I mean is that it's expensive. It takes time. It takes that intention takes time. It's not an easy button thing. It's actually a thing where you're going to work at something and you're going to just handle what comes. So I like that idea that you focus on who and how you hire because that's where it all starts. Do you find that with your clients, and I don't know how deeply entrenched you are with all of your clients, but when a client comes in and successfully deploys, right?
Yep.
Let's say they're at that maintenance maturity level where they're ready for the technology, they're ready for further building out their, we'll say, digital twin,
Yep.
and having these tools at the ready and set up properly with their asset hierarchies. Do the clients ever lose their place kind of in where they're succeeding with the platform and then somebody leaves, maybe it's one of their champions or something like that, and you have to go back and re-educate everyone? Is that a problem that's still happening
Hmm.
today?
I mean, once again, it comes down to our client teams, right? And just their own systems. But what we recognize is that when we do have turnover on the client side, it's an opportunity, right? Because it's an opportunity for us to go make that on-site visit and that trip out to them, our customer success, to reintroduce the platform to them because we try to ensure that we're not just connected with one person, but because we have unlimited seats, it's not like our platform is, specialized to a couple users only because, they're trying to save here and there. No, I
Right.
mean, everyone, on the client's organization can have a hand in this, right? And can have a seat in this. And so we try to get the most people involved in it so that we can have, some clear handoff when positions do change, and that does happen. But we treat every opportunity there as an example, as an opportunity to go in and say, hey, let's introduce you to this. This is what you guys have been using it for. This is, the new ways that you could use it for in the future, and we just use it as an opportunity to lean in deep again.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and we also recognize, we're looking at it as if it's hard for us. It's much harder for the client. It's much harder for that maintenance team that has lost their planner all of a sudden, who knew, that Jim's got something going on at home, and so I don't schedule him on Thursday at this time, right? So it's what can we do to help there, and whether that's maybe even reestablishing, a 10-minute check-in a week or something like that. Man, the dividends paid by just like 10 minutes on the calendar as a stand up or a check in when a client is going through a change like that is huge. And so we've been able to successfully navigate that multiple times because we just lean back in.
Yeah, that's another thing where what can happen as you're growing as a solution provider and service provider kind of rolled up all into one is if you lose that willingness to make those touches and really keep those clients engaged in that process of checking in, getting a little update. If you start focusing more on how many invoices are unpaid, how many invoices are going out, what clients are we going to raise the price on this quarter or whatever, you lose sight of what really made your business what it is. And I really do believe that. And I know it's hard when companies scale and they get really, really big. It's hard to keep up with everything, but you said it. The client, that one client, and they all represent one client each, have their own struggles, and you have to still focus on that because that's the lifeblood of your company. If you start to neglect, alienate, or be unavailable for the client, eventually that's going to cost you enough where you have to make changes that are going to hurt all the other clients and hurt your business. I'm also wondering about thinking about how clients, when you reach out and you're like, hey, we're doing your check-in, we want to do a quick assessment, see where you're at. They get so busy because they still struggle with the reactive environment.
Yep.
That prevents them from, like, they can't spare that 10 minutes. They just can't. And I don't know how we're ever going to solve that. So what I'm saying is for vendors, like just keep on them and keep showing them the value as to what those check-ins are going to really do for them. Because if you document that on this check-in, we found this and then we went and fixed it, this is how it helped the client. That's all the client's really needing so that they can keep going with this great journey.
Yeah, I think one thing, and this just speaks to the experience of our team, is that we understand that oftentimes, if someone's not getting back to us, or if we have a meeting planned and it doesn't happen, first of all, we get it, and second of all, we follow up because it's not that they don't want to, it's that something happened and so they couldn't, and so where some people might go, well, I don't want to be annoying. For me, thinking back to when I was a physical facility man, I'm like, please be annoying. Please remind me 10 times. Please keep texting me and emailing me because I need it, because I'm busy. And at some point I will get to you because it is important. Right. And so don't go silent and go away because you're part of my system for remembering the things that are important. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's for our team to learn each client and be like, I'm just going to keep following up and that's okay. Here's something really interesting is that when we begin to understand our clients, we've held, go live onboarding sessions in control rooms at 9 p.m. at night because that's when we hit night shift. And we were there the day before because we also know that something was going to happen the day before that would prevent someone from being there, right? And a plant was running 24/7. And so we decided we'll have our go live on site for 2 days because the client's busy and we can't expect everyone to be there. Something's going to go wrong. Someone's going to get called out of that room. So let's just plan it for 2 days to make sure that everyone can actually get through our training and onboarding. I mean, that type of thing just makes sense unless you're just looking at it in, static. Well, this is the go live and it's at this time and these are the parameters. And no, what's the point of it? The point of it is what our clients getting out of it and what we're able to pass on and how we're able to enable and empower them to do work better, right? And how that can make life better for them too. And so we're connecting all of it together. Like I said, we think in systems, we think in single pane of glass, and that's our DNA, and that's the DNA of the team that we've put together. So we recognize it's all connected, and we operate out of it.
Yeah, and it's and nothing really is static in these environments. It's just not a thing. There might be some stuff, but most things are moving, shifting, ebbing, flowing, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. Things are going to happen. Things are going to fail, no matter what preventive measures you put in place. Yep. Pretty tough to really have 100% uptime all the time. It's just not a thing, and that's a natural thing. And it's great that you have not just technology, but a team that wants to be connected and involved in that. So I want to, this is, it's your first time on CMMS Radio. So I want to put you through kind of an inaugural fun question segment, if you're cool with that. That's how I like to close out for first timers. You
Sure.
Cool with that?
Yeah.
All right, man. No wrong answers on any of this stuff, okay? So just no, and there's no tricks here. These are just good, fun questions. First fun question. What is your favorite music?
What is my favorite music? Oh man. Um, I would say growing up in the 90s, it's got to be alternative and grunge.
All right, cool.
Wide
Heard that one
variety,
before.
but yep.
Nothing wrong with that. All right. Favorite, number two, favorite sport or hobby. And on sport, it doesn't have to be one you play, it could be one you like to root for and cheer for.
Favorite sport. I mean, it's going to be a tie up between baseball just passively to, enjoy the afternoon and rugby, which I played in high school and still think about, maybe joining back up at times.
All right. I like that one. All right. Here's the big one. Number three. What is your philosophy, perspective, opinion, anything at all? Like, is it even a thing when it comes to this idea of work-life balance?
Work-life balance. Man, that's such a good question, and just so relevant for where we are in our world right now. I think it's also one that I've had to struggle through. I think even post COVID, we've all had to struggle through it, right? And so I think for me, I've learned that in the position I'm in, the lines need to blur at times, and I work to get to a point, and I try to make sure that my life is unified around it. And so it kind of gets to the point where um, I'm just going to make sure that they blend well. And here's the key thing: as long as you communicate it really well, it works. It's when you don't communicate it well that there's problems. If you can try and plan things out in advance, if you can try and take hold of your calendar and just make sure that everybody knows, what you're doing and what you've planned to do. I mean, it comes back to classic communication. Tell people what you're going to do and then do it.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so the way that I run my calendar is a mix of life and work, but it's there for everybody to see. I'm not hiding things, I'm not holding things back. I'm showing that, this is the balance that I have and that I'm working through. And here's the output that we're putting out. And we're all pretty high performing people on this team. And so we have a high degree of trust when it comes to that. And it works out really well for us. So
Yeah. It's always better when you let people do their job. Let them
yes.
do their work, because that's why you hired them in the first place. And certain level of autonomy allows somebody to have that confidence to get the job done and manage the life, if we want to call those two different things. Don't know if there's a real answer to this, like that's one and done for everybody. I think we get to learn from you and have a lot of fun. This idea behind the work-life balance and the fun questions is us being able to get to know you, get this extra perspective, and kind of get people thinking. It's not about being right, it's about being real.
Yeah.
And first of all, Michael Johnson, I want to thank you for being here with me on CMMS Radio and giving me some of these insights around Aetos. And for anybody out there, if you want to check out Aetos, you can go to Aetos, that's AETOS imaging.com, and you can check them out, get familiar with them. And once again, Michael, thank you for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Yeah, thank you, Greg. It was a pleasure, and we're excited to dive in and just continue to learn with you.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.